So apparently, nobody working at the New York Post was able to watch Top Gun, the original Top Gun, all the way through and pay attention to the details without being on their phone. Because if they had, they would have noticed a giant glaring error in one of their most recent top stories that has nothing to do with the movie. It has to do with this story they're putting out about this F-35 crash in South Carolina that we've been talking about for the last few days. Now, at this point, they could probably just shut up about it and other things would come into the news and people would forget. But they've got to continually be putting out information, and every time they do, they slip up. They goof. See, they love these parts. Everybody remembers the motorcycle scene, the kissing scene, and the combat scenes, but they don't remember the little details. And that's going to be their end. Now, real quick, as always, I want to say thank you to everyone who continues to join us here at the Florida Maquis channel every single day. Those of you who have stepped up over at the Patreon channel, the $1 level, the $5 level, God bless all of you. Those of you who've done the annuals, you guys are absolutely amazing, making a huge, huge difference in my life right now. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are like, what more could we know about this F-35 story? Well, if you didn't already have suspicions about the story, wait until you see this. It is going to blow your mind. Now, I want to give credit where credit is due. Earlier today, I was watching Lisa Haven over at Restricted Republic, and she was doing a little bit of a piece on this story that came out of the New York Post about the F-35 allegedly being inverted before crashing. Apparently, there were eyewitnesses to this event. Strangely enough, there were eyewitnesses, but nobody called in. Nobody said, hey, we saw a jet crash. Because what do we know? We know that Joint Base Charleston put out an advisory asking for people to help them find their lost F-35. Well, in her reporting, she shows something pretty amazing, but there was a key detail that got missed. Now, here's the video from earlier today. Missing F-35 story just turned upside down. Here's what really happened. And it's a New York Post article. And it talks about the missing F-35. Now, I'm going to zoom in real quick. Check out Lisa Haven. Guys, I've been watching her for a long, long time. Really, really sharp. But there's a key detail that I think you'd probably have to be Gen X to remember, because we didn't have phones in the theater to distract us. So we watched the whole movie multiple times. Now, here's the part that gets missed. Here's the part in blue above is what Lisa Haven has outlined. But there's a part that's not outlined that'll completely blow the story out of the water. Now, let me read the whole thing. The missing F-35 stealth jet, presumed to have crashed in South Carolina over the weekend, was spotted, quote, almost going inverted as it flew about 100 feet above the treetops just before the disaster, according to a witness. Adrian and Stephen Trueluck, I hope I got the name right, were celebrating their son's 7th birthday at their Williamsburg County, South Carolina home on Sunday when they spotted a low-flying aircraft before hearing a boom sound. Now, this is their quote. Our kids always give a little salute, so we said. Look at the plane. Oh my gosh, it's so low, Adrian told NBC News. Quote, and it was kind of probably 100 feet above the treetops and almost going inverted. Now, that's the wife. Her husband interjects, Stephen, it was probably 3/4 of the way inverted, noting that they could, quote, see the canopy of the jet. See the canopy of the jet. Soon after witnessing the jet, they recalled hearing a loud boom sound, but they said they just chalked that up to stormy weather. There would be no canopy on that F-35 at that point. Why? Because the pilot ejected literally a minute after takeoff. What has to happen? What has to happen for the pilot to eject? That's right. You've got to blow the canopy. Now, in this digital recreation, they show part of the canopy. Still doubt it. That's not the case, guys. This is an F-35 canopy. This thing would have been blown and gone. And even if this plane was flying inverted, upside down, like you remember in Top Gun, okay, there would have been no canopy to see. Real quick question, Gen Xers. How did Goose die? How did Goose die? Now, a lot of people, they didn't see the movie. Well, didn't the plane crash? No. They were in a flat spin, out to sea, and Tom Cruise, in the front seat, couldn't reach the ejection handle. He said, Goose, you'll have to punch us out. And so Goose reaches up, and Tom Cruise, Maverick, famously says, watch the canopy. The canopy goes up, they eject, and he ejects right into the canopy, and that, of course, broke his neck, and that's what killed him. And, of course, there's the infamous scene of his body, his lifeless body, drifting down in the chute. That's what happened. There would have been no canopy to see if the pilot had ejected. If the pilot had ejected, when he said he ejected, a minute later, how do we have a report saying that there were people who saw the jet inverted 100 feet above the trees and canopy intact? Stephen Trueluck said it was probably 3/4 of the way inverted, noting that they could see the canopy of the jet. Now, isn't this kind of funny? Who remembers the little argument, the little tete-a-tete that went on between Tom Cruise's character, Maverick, Pete Mitchell, and the blonde, by the way, here was his instructor, civilian instructor at the Top Gun school, where he says that the data on the MiG is wrong, that they had allegedly some kind of a problem with their fuel tanks in a negative G dive, and he had been in a negative G dive, inverted, directly over top of a MiG. Remember the scene right at the beginning? And she's like, if you were above him, how could you see him? We were inverted, he said, meaning they were upside down. Everybody else, bullshit, all that. And, of course, that's where she was really intrigued because she had read the reports on this. So I find this very odd. This entire thing very odd, that we have a craft that was allegedly inverted right before it crashed. And let me go over something else, too, that a lot of people miss in this. When they say, and some of my viewers have pointed this out, too, and we covered this. The aircraft took off here. Now, takeoff speed is 200 knots. Okay, at 200 knots, you're doing over 3 miles a minute. Okay? Now, this thing was on the ground 60 miles away. I've heard 60 or 80 miles away, whatever this is, up here around Indiantown. So we're talking 15 minutes from wheels up to literally in the ground, done. 15 minutes at 200 knots. That's all this would have taken. And there are allegedly 2 eyewitnesses now. And Lisa Haven covers this. The second one just gives kind of a description of what it sounded like when the thing went in. But if he ejected at 1 minute here, sometime in the next 14 minutes, somebody in Williamsburg said they could see it over the trees. I'm trying to find where Williamsburg is. Said they could see it over the trees. I don't even know where Williamsburg is, to be truthful. But this is Indiantown here. Oh, Williamsburg is the county. My bad. So this whole area is called Williamsburg. My bad. So it would only have been a matter of minutes from the time they saw the aircraft inverted, canopy intact, to the time of the boom. But yet they say they see it flying that low. It would have been literally just minutes if it was treetop level. Because he said here at takeoff, he was at 1,000 feet. that he got up to 1,000 feet and ejected. Well, 1,000 feet is way above treetop level. So from the time he took off here, the thing was from when he ejected, it was in a slow descent at 200 knots. So I have to guess it was somewhere in here that it would have been treetop level before it eventually crashed somewhere up here in the region of Indiantown. So we're talking about from the time they would have seen it at treetop level to the time on the ground. We're not talking 5 or 10 minutes later. We're talking like 2. Maybe 2 minutes later. And if the weather was that bad, how did these people see it? If the weather was so bad and so rainy and so, that they attributed the boom to thunder, you wouldn't have seen anything at 1,000 feet. You would have not seen anything at 1,000 feet. You wouldn't have seen it at treetop level either. If it was a pouring rainstorm where there was thunder. So once again, all you would have had to have done is not been on your phone for the 2 hours that it took to watch Top Gun to know that this story is bogus out of the New York Post. I mean, they can't even get, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these aren't really paragraphs. This would be like, 2 paragraphs? 1, 2 paragraphs? They can't even go this many lines without telling a provably wrong lie. Kind of probably 100 feet above the treetops. How tall is a tree? 50 feet? 60 feet? So it was at 150 feet. 150 feet moving at 200 knots. 150 feet high at 200 knots. 3/4 of the way inverted. And then you hear a boom and you're like, oh, that's just thunder. That's just thunder. There would have been no canopy. There would have been no canopy to see. Can someone explain it? Can someone explain it seriously? It was the hardest part of the movie to watch. Him slamming into the canopy. Everybody who saw the movie in the theater or rented it and brought it home back in the 80s, whichever. But I suppose anybody who had a phone in their hand probably would have been at that point in the movie. If you were watching it, say, on Netflix or Hulu or wherever the heck it is, you'd probably have been on your phone by that point. Because what do we know about the modern era? People can't sit and pay attention to anything for more than 5 minutes anymore. Sitting through a whole movie? I think it would be probably one of those life-changing events if you made people take away their phones. Even Lauren Boebert. Even Lauren Boebert couldn't get through all of Beetlejuice without being on her phone. So anyway, just a real quick shout out to Lisa Haven. Thank you for the info. Very, very much appreciate it. Her Justice Night, they're still over at We're Forked Up. Their most recent episode is a Cuban pizza that looks like it's absolutely incredible. They have a lot of fun with this backup channel of theirs. They have Restricted Republic. There's Justice Night has a channel. Lisa's got a channel. They've got a whole family of them. This is their website. This is, the YouTube channel We're Forked Up. So give them a like, check them out. It's really a lot of fun to watch them go out and have a few drinks and eat some really good food. But I just wanted to cover this for everybody and show that sometimes, it's a psyop. It is a psychological operation. The idea that people can, because they get caught up in emotions, and that's the reason I use this picture, because it evokes a lot of different emotions, that people can remember things, but they can also completely miss things. They can also just watch things go just right by and not even see what's happening. So anyway, God bless. There's a lot of psychological operations content and training videos over at the Patreon channel. We talk about things over there in a very, very different way, because here we've got to kind of put the brakes on, so to speak, and deal with the censors. But over there, because we have the relationship with Vimeo that we do, we can keep prying eyes away from what we're talking about. So God bless. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Pray for each other. Lift each other up. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.